you. Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, and I have never been so excited in my life because for years I've been trying to get the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to my annual book club convention. This is our 22nd year, and it will always be the highlight. I'm here with my brand new favorite Dolly Parton book, which is her storyteller book. Is her life in her songs. It's a tome. You guys, I'm going to be sharing it after the event. I am like the biggest Dolly Parton fan. Author Michael Morris and I, and a bunch of my Pulpwood Queen friends went to the 80th anniversary of the Grand Ole Opry, and I got to hear her in Nashville. But today we have David Dotson. He is the executive director of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And I am just thrilled you're here, David. He's reporting in from Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So I'm turning the program over to you, and then we might have a little discussion at the end, but It's all share with the world, everything that you all are doing.
Yeah, well, thanks, Kathy. I really appreciate it. And I realize probably for many of you, I'm the only thing that's standing between you and lunch. So I'll try to be efficient as best as I can. What I'd like to do, thank you again for the invitation, and thanks for, I saw the agenda, so you all must be exhausted at this point. I've never seen such a packed. It reminded me of a story when I was with Imaginate, when I was working and traveling a lot. I was on a flight to Hawaii, and when we landed, for work, unfortunately, but it was still nice. When we landed, someone was ill on the plane, and they told everybody to stay seated. So I had a seat open next to me, and a young woman who probably 18 or 19 had been displaced by the medical emergency, which turned out to be fine. But she sat next to me, and she was a young woman who was in the service. And she told me briefly, I said, well, what brings you here? And she was from a very small town out west, had never been anywhere, joined the service as sort of her way to the world, and very wide-eyed and naive and sweet. So she said to me, she goes, well, what are you doing here? And I said, well, actually, this is kind of a historic moment in my life because I've now been to all 50 states. And she looked at me with this puzzled look, and she said, you must be exhausted. And so I was like, no, this is a Lifetime Achievement Award. This is not all the last 4 days, but that's what it reminded me of, is you all must be exhausted, because it's an incredibly content-filled week. But so what I thought I would do is talk a bit about just me quickly personally. I realized the one thing that's gone through everybody's mind, and I'm quite used to it, but I do know it and I respect it, which is I know everybody's sitting there thinking, damn, I wish Dolly Parton was here and not that bozo. So we can, it's something that I'm proud to wear, because being able to ever always represent her or extend her reach has been a really blessing in my life, both personally and certainly professionally. So what happened is, like in '99, is when I joined the foundation as the executive director, and we were quite small. And I'm going to quickly fast forward to today, because then I'll backfill with the presentation. But in January of 21, I stepped aside as CEO for the foundation after 21 years. I just felt it was time that I handed the reins over to the folks who'd been recruiting and developing to be the future of the foundation. And I was looking forward to a bit more time and flexibility in my own life, because I'm sure, like all of y'all, you spend your whole life working, and you finally get to the point where maybe there's some time not to give up work, because I could never do that. So I've been now working for Dolly and for Dollywood and the foundation on a legacy project, which is going to be the context of the brief remarks that I'm making about Imagination Library and some other things. So I am happy to say the Foundation and Imagination Library are doing really well, and the future is quite bright. And I've remained on the board as an officer and as her representative, along with Ted Miller, and now more working in something that's called Dolly Parton Productions. So it's been quite a journey that's far from over, but it has been a new chapter in my life. So it's good to be part of people who love chapters and can understand that one chapter finished is a new chapter adventure. And that's kind of where I am at the moment. So when I came in 99, I lived here and was fortunate enough that a friend of mine knew a man named Ted Miller, who was a person who created Dollywood with Dolly. And won't go into all the details about how it sort of unfolded because it's a whole other story. But long story short, eagerly accepted the invitation to join the foundation, which at the time was my position and one other. And we were, at the time, the Imagination Library was really just had been created, and it was solely a local program. The idea behind it, and I'm sort of dispense with the details real quickly, but I can always go back in some questions and answers because some folks really are interested in how it operates, was that Dolly her mission has always been to help children. That's what she wanted to do, but she wanted to always do it in a way that was her own way, which is to create something that she thought would be of great benefit to as many children as possible, regardless who that they may be. You know, celebrities have an opportunity, and many do all kinds of wonderful things. Some prefer to, you know, have a cause of the year and try to be a spokesperson for as many foundations or as many charities or as many issues as possible. She felt she was drawn to singularity, a single focus, one that with that single focus and the right design could maybe reach a scale that, you know, few think possible. So at the time, the foundation's Imagination Library was working only in Sevier County, had about 2,000 children a month enrolled in the program. And the basis of the program is quintessentially everything about Dolly. This was all born from her desires, which was one, that in Sevier County, so just think now only her hometown, that every child should be eligible to participate, no matter how rich, poor, or whoever they were. No eligibility, no means testing, no judging of anybody. Number two is that it had to be something of significance. It couldn't be one thing. It had to be a lot of things. So in the relation to the books, Dolly could have easily given a book a year to all kinds of people, but this notion of, no, Dolly Parton would give children a book every month for 5 years. They would have 60 books. Dolly Parton wouldn't give one book or two books. And so, and then the final thing is that no matter what would be done to help people, it should not ever feel like charity or even, you know, I guess I'm trying to think of the right words without offending anybody, but it would be, just let's just leave it as that it wouldn't feel like a charity, it'd feel like a gift. It would feel like a gift given from somebody who loves someone else. And so that was really where the Imagination Library came from. And the focus on books was clearly something you all know, was that it's the single most important gift one can give to a child, because it's really the keys to the world. And it develops that love of reading. Our job then and the job today is not to be an expert in child development or an expert in literature or early childhood issues, even though we're, you know, couched in all that, but really is all about developing a love of reading and a love of books. Because we all know, whether you have kids or have nieces and nephews or whatever, that children tend to love and do the things they love to do and steadfastly avoid the things that they don't love to do. So our mission was, how do you instill love at this earliest of age as a gift that would last the rest of their lives? So that's really where all the details came from. A brand new book. No, Dolly Parton wouldn't give a recycled book. A brand new, specially chosen book each month from the time the child is born until he or she reaches their fifth birthday and is getting ready to go to kindergarten. So the other key part was the book would be mailed to the child. It would be gifted through the mail, have their name on it. So it was a personal gift with their name. And obviously, even today, you know, most kids have never really received mail at that age, and probably most won't ever get much any mail anymore. But as if that one piece of mail is a book, then it's going to make that book even more special and even more important. So my job when I came in '99 was, and I think the reason why I got the job was that I was asked by Dolly, which was kind of a funny interview because we were sitting in the back of a van while she was shooting a Dollywood commercial, that I felt like other communities, this would be something we could figure out a way to grow. I knew to get to scale, she couldn't pay for everything, but how could we pay for all of the central expenses and the overhead and all the logistical figuring out and the database and all those items, if communities would pay for the actual cost of the book and the mailing for their kids, and do this initially on a community by community basis. That was her vision as well. I didn't know it at the time, but this notion of how many millions of kids could possibly participate was really planted, way back in '99. So that's what I set out to do. And since then, I'm going to fast forward 21 years of history, which we can always go back to, but those 2,000 children a month are now 1.8 million children a month in 5 different countries. And it's really been an incredible journey that has had so many people like Betty and Kathy and others of you who I don't know out there who may be sponsoring or participating in a local community effort, because it really involves and demands and requires local people to own it and to fund it locally for their kids. And we absorb all the other costs, which makes it a very affordable cost of, a little over $2 a book per person per child for everything. And that, brand new selection, specially curated every year. We've always used, back in 2000, my job was to find a publisher. I was sort of like the old Nashville songwriter, but this time in New York, banging on publishers' doors and saying, Dolly Parton has this program that we think can be a lot bigger, but we need your help. And they all were interested, because you say Dolly Parton, you get everybody's interest about anything. But Penguin really got it. And Lisa Vitelli at Penguin, who's still there today and still shepherds Penguin's role in partnership with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, was our publisher of choice, and it continues to be. And I'm sure that they're really happy they took that risk, because we've now gifted, since we started, well over 150 million books. So it's been this year alone in 21, it was over 21 million books that were gifted through these channels. So we're definitely at the point that we always hoped to be, which was at scale. It's really hard. We will soon have 10% of every child under 5 in the United States participating in the program. There is, when you benchmark that to any other sort of government program at scale, when a full 10% of all children, and keep in mind, there are more kids under 5 in the United States than there is in the entire population of Canada or Australia. So it's a huge number. And I think that number is really going to grow and has a real shot at 20%. One of the reasons why it made it easy for me to kind of pursue a related but new adventure was that Jeff Conyers and Nora Briggs and the team that had been assembled were really, after focusing on, we had turned the sort of focus to more statewide programs like we forged in Tennessee, where every child in a state can participate. And I'm happy to say there are now 15 of those, counting Washington, D.C., and they include Arkansas and the District of Columbia, Ohio, the Delaware, North Carolina, soon to come on board, Colorado and Kansas. So, and there are many more in the pipeline, including both Texas and California, which those 2 alone will do amazing on the numbers. There's more kids in those 2 states under 5 than all the other ones combined that we've already been. So the future is quite bright. And I can, again, maybe when we have a conversation, I can talk a little bit more how books are chosen and all those kinds of things. But my main purpose was really to try to paint that picture for you of where we've been and kind of where we are today, and where the foundation is going with the Imagination Library. What I'd like to sort of now is kind of zoom out just a little bit, because this is sort of the part about contextualizing everything. Dolly, what I've been asked to do today, and I mean today and, well, today too, literally Saturday, is that she's pretty clear, and we've had enough conversations to know what she thinks, obviously, and wants for her legacy. But like everything else in her world, she has people like me and others whose job it is to help achieve that vision, regardless of what it may be. The notion for her going forward is her real belief that while this music and the personality and the looks and all those things will endure, but as she said so many times, is I hope people always realize that no matter how artificial I look, there's a real authentic, genuine heart underneath this all. And that's really, really true. And so that heart that drives every decision is really going to be her legacy. So to boil it down into 4 key things that we are going to continue to build out, be it a new program for the Dollywood Foundation or new offerings at Dollywood or at the Stampede and some other dinner theaters. And then as it relates back to a bit to the music and entertainment world, working in conjunction with the folks who help her on that end. If you ask people, and I did this for a couple of months, and if I ask you, what are sort of the top 3 or 4 enduring attributes of Dolly that mean the most to you and that you think would mean the most to people down the road, so it has an enduring quality? What you end up with at first glance is a list of every wonderful human attribute in the history of all human beings, right? So it's a long list, but when you really dig down deeper, which is what I did, to say what some of these things really coalesce. So there's really is a key here of what the most important attributes that mean the most to people. And those are love in the most transcendental sense, not just romantic love or family love, but love of men and women, love of humanity, love of the world. So if you're going to benchmark it, think of someone like Gandhi's transcendental love or other spiritual leaders. It's something that is so unconditional that it is very appealing to people and it's very important to people. So that was the first one. The second one, which kind of goes hand in glove with that and really was quite strong, was acceptance of self and acceptance of others. So the 2 parts of that are really key, of course, is what, her message, and I think you all exemplify that, is be proud of who you are and don't ever be afraid or don't ever compromise or rationalize away who you are, no matter how different, no matter how unique, no matter how odd it may appear to others. None of that makes any difference, because if you're true to yourself, then you will be successful and you will be happy. And what goes right along with that, sort of the flip side, is acceptance of others. I have never met a more non-judgmental person in my life than Dolly. And, she wouldn't even be a judge for American Idol because she thought, I can't judge. I want everybody to win, and that really is the key to it, because, I think everyone, without editorializing on our world today, is that we all kind of have to swim against that. We have to accept people where they are and who they are. The other enduring quality, and this is really an important one that the library also exemplifies, is being an inspiration. How can you do whatever you do, inspire the best out of others? How can not inspire them to be like you? That's not it's to be their best self, and also to be their best person in relation to others in the world. So this inspirational quality, which we get lots of mail, I get lots of mail for Dolly and email and otherwise. And I have to say, that's probably the most number one element that people are always reaching out to her about. She's inspired something in them. It may be inspired to get over grief or a broken heart or a tough time or drug, or it may be inspired to take the risk in a career or whatever, but it really knits together a lot of things. And then the final one, which goes hand in glove again with that one, is being creative, being bold, being a dreamer. I can't speak for Kathy, but I imagine none of this would have ever been possible that you all have built unless she and others way back dared to dream about it and had a vision and looked beyond the 4 people perhaps sitting in your living room at the time when you were doing this. And I think that's, no matter what your world is, that notion of how to dream big, how to have a vision that you will pull and drive you along is really important. So that's really the pillars of her legacy. I think when we construct, have decisions and about product or program or attractions, and if they're rooted to one or all of these attributes, then they have a real chance to endure, because at the end of the day, her legacy and your legacy is, when I ask people through this project about what they thought legacy was, and most people gravitated toward a fond memory of a person. Betty was just a great person. She was always happy, and she always was loving, and we'll always remember that. And that's really, really important. But there's something that's even more important that very few are in a position to achieve and scale. I mean, I'm not saying to undermine any of us, but there are people. Dolly has more influence than I do in the world. And that is to have a real relevance in people's lives 50 years from now, not just to be remembered. Elvis is remembered, right? But is Elvis relevant in the day-to-day life? And when you think about people who are, and I don't put Dolly on this level, so please understand this is just an example. You really look at the greatest examples of people who are relevant in a lot of people's lives many years down the road, thousands of years in this case, are great religious leaders. Jesus is relative in people's lives today. So is Muhammad, so is Buddha, all of these folks, and Mother Teresa, folks who really have the Virgin Mary, that's a real great example, because they really mean something to people in all aspects of their lives. So while Dolly would kill me if she ever thought I was comparing her to those people. So don't tell her, please. But I don't compare her to them, but I think we can be relevant. She can be relevant in people's lives for a long time if those things are rooted in these attributes, are properly operated and sustained, and this culture of how to do that keeps being passed on. And these are all the things that we're working on. The Imagination Library is a perfect example. If it'll be in existence 50 years from now, just as a pick a number. So that means 50 years from now, and let's say every state and every province in Canada and 15 other countries, every month a child gets a book that's been delivered with many people involved, that is bringing the essence of these attributes of love and acceptance and inspiration into the home. Dolly will be relevant in their lives. By the same token, I think that what we've kind of sort of ended this with, and I'm eager just to chat and stop presenting because I'm tired of hearing myself talk, is that the notion of this circle of life, and this is the paradigm, if you will, that I'm operating under, and I think we all are, which is for her to be relevant. We start with the little ones with the Imagination Library. Goal there, how do we scale this to as many millions of folks possible? Because the bigger it gets, the more apt we are to move the needle a bit in humanity. The second is really these children grow up into school, into grade school and high school. And this is one of the next frontiers for us and for her. How is Dolly relevant then in the lives of millions of school-age kids? It's got to be different than the Imagination Library. Could be still centered on books, but there's something else that could be a gift for instance, and this has just not been decided, but when I was in high school, I imagine for many of you, every high school still to this day, most every high school the drama club puts on a play for the schools and the parents, right? Well, from what I can see from our own kids and probably our grandkids soon is, gosh, they're still choosing from the same 10 plays that we did, right? It's Arsenic and Old Lace and Oklahoma and, which are great, don't get me wrong, but how would the story of the Coat of Many Colors be as a presentation or a play that we could package to high schools all over the world, really, that would take this message of that story, bring it to life on stage for those kids, their families, their friends, and their community. So, I use that just to illuminate that as an idea, but that's the next part of the stage of life. Then kids leave high school, go to college, or not go to college before their next phase is. And then ultimately they become parents perhaps, or aunts or uncles or whatever. And then those children get the imagination library and start it all over again. There's still some places we need to look, like in that young adult 20 year old, maybe there's something there, but that's really sort of